So, hi, good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, everyone. So, myself, Gaurav Kumar Mishra, the chairman of the Prayagraj branch of CIRC of ICAI, on behalf of the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee, welcome all the participants who have joined and who are joining in a minute of five in today's webcast on handling difficult conversation by the CAs. The topic since last, I'm watching these particular conversations since last around a year when these committees have been formed, and I think that we should appreciate, even as a listener, also we should appreciate that yes, the committee has brought out a lot of good topics, and this today topic is really helpful for me. The reason behind this is this. The reason behind this is because this is the very important topic for the handling of the communication. And today's our speaker is Nilanjal Paul. Sir is a chartered accountant with having 17 years of post qualification experience in a wide range of accounting and auditing matters. He has significant experience in the assessing financial reporting implication arising from the complex and judgmental matters such as going concern and non-compliances with the laws and regulations in handling capital market transactions. He's a speaker in various forums, including the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs set up by MCA and involved in providing the point of view on emerging issues such as reporting under the Companies Act, SEBI, and listing compliances. He has also published a point of view on emerging issues in leading publications, having national presence and speakers at various forums. So, without being delay, I'm getting delayed. I'm handing over the entire session to Nilanjal Paul, sir, and I'm very sure that and overwhelmed that today's session is going to be very fantastic as this particular topic is very close to me and I think it is very close to a lot of members. Sir, welcome and now over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's indeed a pleasure to speak and connect with all the fellow professionals. It's 12:03 in the afternoon, and the weather in Delhi, especially, is cold. I'm hoping the festival season will come up pretty soon, and we will be having some amount of time off from our daily schedule. So before I begin, happy holidays. I think it would be coming up in a week or so, but I hope you guys find time to enjoy uh, and spend time with your family. So the topic for the day, as I said, as the chairman also mentioned, is I think very close to everyone of us. It is not just from a professional standpoint, but uh, it is about handling conversations in general. So, though there would be certain nuances from a professional communication standpoint, I tried to keep the session generic, and so that we can use this opportunity to connect with each other and share uh, mutual experiences. I would strongly encourage that we all connect. I don't want to be a one-way communication, and to have wide-ranging thoughts on these topic is always critical. As I said, these are more generic thoughts. More of them are my own experiences, which I had in the last 17 or 18 years of my professional lives. Um I'm sure you must also had similar experiences in your professional lives or in your personal life to some extent. But the topic or the way the discussion is designed today is expected to share or provide a platform for mutual experiences. So let's start this topic about difficult conversations, especially when a chartered accountant encounters in their day-to-day work. It could be on account of a team member, it could be on account of a different situation where he or she is not experienced on that situation, or a very demanding or a very tight deadline. So the presentation has been prepared in keeping that thing in mind. So the content, we would discuss what is actually a difficult conversation. How would anybody prepare for a difficult conversation, be it the person who is going to lead the conversation, or most importantly the person who is going to hear that conversation from the other side, and what are those do's and don'ts that would like to have or should not have when you are engaging these kind of discussions. So just to start off, I thought I'll put this picture on the slide. Awkward moment or challenging situations with clients are never the moments which any chartered accountant look forward to. Though I can say this with all certainty that we want our professional relationships with our clients to be seamless and more engaging, but that is far from the truth. We had situations where people enter into a very discomfortable zone where they have conflicting views, things get emotional, and sometimes things really go out of hand. So let's see how we can avoid these situations, or most importantly, how we can manage those situations. What I can tell you from my experience is that we cannot eliminate these situations fully, but yes, we can learn how to navigate and to some extent minimize those situations. So let me ask this question to all of you. Should I deal with all clients in the same manner? I would generally assume that the answer is no. But why would that be? If the clients are the same, I'm going to offer a similar type of service. But why would I not have a similar manner of dealing with a particular client? Well, I think the answer is pretty simple. One side does not fit all. Uh, it is uh, it is a situation where it becomes difficult to manage expectations. It is difficult to have a situation where uh, we have a one default formula for handling all situations. Clients are different, their expectations are different. Our experience on dealing with a particular client are different. So if all these variables are there, then obviously the way I would react to a particular client or discuss matter with a particular client would be completely bit different. But one thing that is very critical is that there has to be a atmosphere of trust. There should be a place where everybody discusses uh, difficult questions, difficult situations, and they both of them look for a positive outcome. So, what I'm only requesting you to consider is that when you are engaging with a particular client, one type of behavior or one type of, even though these service offerings might be same, it might be different, right? As I said, the expectations especially might be different, right? Uh, so there could be other commercial reasons which might get triggered. On a combined basis, this might have a different outcome on the way we work with a client. But what is more important is to have the culture of trust. We should avoid nitpicking, sweating on the small stuff, and we should handle conversations in a professional manner. So, okay. So, but before I go into all this detailed kind of a discussion, I thought I'll share my view on what is a difficult conversation. So, if my client calls me maybe at 10 o'clock in the night asking for a particular uh, technical response on income tax matter, is that and let's say I'm spending time with my family, is that uh, is that a difficult conversation? Or there are situations where we are asking for a particular information for quite some time, and ultimately we are being blamed for delaying a particular service, audit or accounting service. Will that qualify as a difficult conversation? So even though you could see my perspective on this slide, what I would only suggest you to note that in case of a difficult conversation, the moot point, what I believe, is where people get emotional. People move away from finding a solution to a particular situation, and they engage into proving themselves wrong, proving themselves right, rather than finding a solution. So if somebody is not solution oriented, and if they are trying to prove their point of view, and they're hell-bent in proving their point of view with a closed mind, more likely than not, it would be a difficult situation. So as it is there on the screen, difficult situations can be from difficult clients, and they can put strain on chartered accountants and on their resources. So if there is a group of people who are working under you, and let's say one of the senior member of the team had asked for a leave request, but you have to imminently cancel that leave request because of a pressing need, you might have a consequence, right? His or her retention and continuance of the firm might be a challenge. So you would encounter these difficult situations and difficult conversation with the client or with your fellow team member in your daily lives. Now, the repercussions of these unresolved difficult client relationships can not only arise because of mismanaged expectation, but also under rated understanding of the client. It could also arise because of an employee burnout. So if your senior on this particular engagement is working on a very complex assignment, and you then pull her up and bring to another complex assignment, there is always expected to be a burnout. So a difficult conversation will encompass a wide range of things, but generally, what is understood is something which put strain on the chartered accountants on their resources. Those resources could be financial, non-financial, or any other thing. So let's talk about classic triggers. What are the common triggers that we see in case of difficult conversations? So let's say if you ask for additional sample size pretty close to the audited sign off date, right? So you find a exception, you go to the client and you say that, I want to test 50 more samples of revenue because I'm not okay with the cutoff of a particular item. Or if I'm doing a GST audit, right, I find out that there are certain errors in the sample, and I want to test maybe 30 or 40 more uh, samples of revenue and corroborate with my GST returns. So here, if you would see, the situation is where we are very close to the sign off or a closure date, and we're asking for additional procedures to be performed. This obviously would trigger emotions. It might give an impression that we are not managing the engagement overall in a professional manner. Then obviously there would be heated conversations and heated exchange of words. Or a very common situation where we are asked for a confirmation from the client's legal counsel on a particular matter, but unfortunately, those information have not yet been provided. If I look at this situation before, uh, we had asked for additional information. Here, we are still asking for new information, but the information is delayed. So more and more you are closer to the audit report date or the closure date, it gets difficult to manage, these kind of additional data which we might need to draw our opinion or conclusion. We find out a material misstatement in the financial statements, and that misstatement is very close to our materiality thresholds, right? And let's say these are identified 2 days before the audit committee or the financial statements to be sent. These could be situations where some of you may have encountered or you may not have encountered, but you can always imagine that the timing possibly could have been better in these situations. Uh, but on the same breath, I also want to acknowledge that there could be some very nuanced aspect of these scenarios where, despite making possible efforts, you may not be able to update the client on a real-time basis, or you may not be able to identify issues on a real-time basis. So, despite the fact that your misstatements are very closer to the materiality levels, this would obviously create a buzz within the management, especially the board and the audit committee. Now, another example could be that that the client is not able to make up her mind. Let's say you have asked a technical response to a particular matter. Things are getting delayed. He or she is just buying time, and ultimately this is keeping a drag on the entire uh, delivery process. So it might be possible that where the people on the other side, the management side, is not experienced, or they are not competent to do a particular activity, that might again trigger emotions and might be a reason for a difficult conversation. Uh, we have also seen situations where everything is an emergency, everything is urgent, everything has to be done today, right? He or she will constantly call. They will waste significant time in explaining the same thing again and again, and ultimately the entire team gets exhausted. There are also tendencies of making a mountain out of a small issue. So where you might have a situation where a client is just pestering you to 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 deliver on a particular scenarios. In my experience, these kind of scenarios are quite common, and uh, we should handle them with some level of maturity. So where you experience this kind of a situation, it is very important that you involve senior team members so that adequate escalation within the firm happens, and you also are able to manage the expectations of the client going forward. So again, this is the same thing what I said. There could be a constant change of heart. I call for one scenario, I respond to that, and again the goalpost change, right? So again, a practical tip maybe that when you are going to experience with this kind type of clients, it is very important that we have a written kind of a understanding, and that is the reason you have written prepared by client list that you would normally be sending to the client. You will be having a written engagement letter where we will explain the scope of our work, the timelines, if any, and the various expectations which the management might have from all this engagement. Well, we also see things where people say that, let's do it tomorrow. I know it's a deadline, and but let's do it tomorrow. There are people who always like to have adrenaline rushing through their body. Somebody who might always like to live and work on the edge. That might again push us as chartered accountants through to a different paradigm. So again, a practical tip: when these things happen, or you expect that things are going in the wrong direction, again, agree on a written timeline and remain confident that if you would communicate to them on a timely manner, ultimately it is their deliverable which might get stuck. So we should have that communication open, and we should be very clearly looping the senior person from the firm, as well as the senior person from the management. So In summary, what I would like to tell you is that you would be encountering difficult clients and difficult scenarios, right? But but ultimately, whether you would be able to eliminate them, the answer is no. You can only minimize them to a certain extent. Make sure that we understand that they also have expectation. It is not that they are having a fun engaging in a difficult situations. They also have expectation. They also have deadlines to meet, and ultimately they might say that we're also paying you for a service. If that is so, they also deserve a quality of work. Um, most importantly, it is important for us or any service provider to make sure or give the impression that the quality will not be compromised. We might be able to look at for certain efficiencies, but ultimately we work as quality as far as chartered accountants are concerned, and it might take a little bit of time, but ultimately we're trying to contribute to that ecosystem. Now, whatever we have seen in the last 5 or 6 slides, if we could sum up, uh, and it could be because of these 3 or 4 primary reasons. First, generally, what I have seen is poor communication, right? Uh, you are writing follow-ups, you are writing reminders again and again, but you may not be writing to the correct person, right? When the things have been brought to the attention of the CFO or the CEO, first response is that why didn't you come to me earlier? So I think the most important is to identify the person, maybe those charged with governance or maybe a senior management of the client, to identify who that person is. If you're able to identify that uh, person, make sure that we are communicating to that person in a very clear way. Second could be unrealistic expectations, right? That the client is going on leave, and before and all things then becomes urgent, right? Let's say we are going to break for some leave during the December season, and let's say on 24th of December you get a call from the client that I want this tax return or a GST certificate or a APR certificate to be filed today, right? So again, expectations are unrealistic sometimes, and they again trigger emotional response rather than a positive response from both the sides. There are also mismanagement in commercials, for example, where we have spent additional efforts, and but the client, because of whatever reason, may not be willing to pay for the additional amount. So again, that could be a reason where relationships get sour with the client. Lastly, there could also be instances where there is a lack of trust. Clients or the professionals are skeptical. They don't trust each other. There could be issues around integrity, issue around independence, and again, these are very sensitive and touchy matters, and they make harder for both the person to work together. So if there is a lack of trust, then obviously it would trigger a wide range of emotions and will have a ripple effect across the entire delivery cycle. Well, it also impacts culture. The moment you have a challenging conversation, it impacts culture. Let's see how does it impacts culture. It creates a negative feeling or a negative belief for the entire organization. So if you and I'm sure you could relate to this when you come up with a heated argument, and when you just step out, you feel very awkward. You feel very overcharged. You maybe when you are going back from a meeting in your car, you would realize that probably this is not the best way that I would have behaved, right? And again, there is a learning for on a go forward basis, but sometimes this continued feeling of discomfort, confusion, bitterness, or negative emotion can spark a very negative impact on the firm on an overall basis. Again, these interactions impact both the parties. It wastes energy. It sometimes can also challenge authority of the party involved, and most importantly, it might can also affect the self confidence of your junior team members or a newly passed out professional. Okay. It might be that you're having a difficult conversation with your team member who has just recently joined the team. In that case, the inexperienced auditor or a young professional would generally try to perform their basic job requirements, right? Your expectation from them could be very much different. So again, it is a very negative experience for both the parties. We then try to tag a particular person in a particular way, and then we propagate or we market that experience to other persons as well. So again, overall, from a culture perspective, these affect the culture of the organization on an overall basis. Again, ignoring the reality can have a challenge if continuously you are being put across as a challenged person on a long term basis. Obviously, this will negatively impact culture. On the other side, there could be people who would just avoid getting into these difficult conversations. In my experience, they don't go a long way. Ultimately, they would have a price to pay. Um, Ultimately, in these evasive kind of a attitude, the problems would get prolonged. They it gets deferred, which possibly could have solved in a much more simpler way. The deferral, or if you're not spending proper time on those particular issues, it would only delay the problem, and the problem inherently then becomes more complex. So again, timing is a very critical factor when you are engaging with human being, especially when the other side is very demanding. So avoid those challenging conversations can leave people highly unappreciated. They might feel that they are not being respected for their time. They might feel that they are not respected for their work, and slowly and steadily their interest or their contribution, and most importantly their quality of work will start dropping. And overall, a finance of organization which is supposed to have high performing people, its quality and delivery will obviously be impacted. Again, if let's say these have impact on culture, uh, without a culture, you may not have a respectful communication. You may not have a very cohesive or a conducive environment. A negative kind of a culture would obviously create place for ego, pride, and selfish behavior. So if you have a negative culture in the organization, then then all the people are fending for themselves. There is no unanimous view or or speaking in one voice so that things go on in the desired direction. Uh, Nutshell, challenging conversation impacts culture. If they are not looked at on a timely basis, they affect the long-term culture and ethos of the firm. So as I said, communication is key. Managing difficult client conversation is not just pleasing the client. So I want to make this very clear. It is not just pleasing the client. We both are professionals and we behave in a professional ways. But ultimately, there are certain boundaries which neither of the parties should cross. Neither the client nor the professional chartered accountants. So managing a difficult situation is not just pleasing. It is not that we have to always accept what the other party is saying. Mind you, in my experience, if you if you accept thing under pressure, then then the client believes that that is the benchmark that they have, and they're more likely than not they will be pushing it further down. So in difficult situation where there are conflicting views, the idea is not to please anyone, but to find a midway so that we are able to reach an amicable solution. Uh, Communication helps in providing the best possible service under the given scenarios, and most importantly, it requires bravery and honesty from both the parties. We all would agree to that these difficult situations is where our blood flows, in and our emotions rise up. But ultimately, to communicate or to discuss to a senior management or to a senior person within the team, it requires a lot and lot of courage. So I admire and applaud people who would have gone through these kind of situations, and they have been able to communicate things in a timely manner. What we should also remember is that not every problem will have immediate solution. If you tell your team member that I am looking for an efficiency initiative which will bring down your time, and you can spend time on more meaningful things, those solutions are not immediate, they take time. You have to look at from a firm side the availability of resources, commercials, the possibility of happening, and ultimately, are we trying to fix a very large problem or a small problem or an isolated problem? So again, from the other side, who is at the receiving end, do keep this in your mind that there may not be an immediate solution. So you have to trust your senior, you have to trust the other person, that yes, he or she is trying to work towards the best possible outcome, and then let's see. Yeah. So let's talk about two scenarios, right? Let's say you are leading the conversation. So when you are leading the conversation, how should you manage a difficult scenario? Let's say you are having a discussion with the client. You have the audit committee or the delivery within the next 1 or 2 days, and we have many other pendencies in the list that you would have been circulating for, let's say, past 1 month. So if you are the person who is going to lead the discussion, let's see how you should generally behave. First and most important, get your facts together. Okay. Be well prepared, right? We all are chartered accountants. We're good with data, but we must add empathy with those data or with those numbers. Number don't speak for themselves. Make sure they are correct. They are properly summarized. The idea is not just to pinpoint a particular person or a particular error, but also the way we show empathy and softness towards the other person is very well appreciated. It could be because there is a cut of budgets. We are having a lesser projections of your profits or performance measure, or it might be that you're admitting a mistake that you have done in the past. The present conversation is uh, it should be very grounded with much equality and authority as possible. So in these conversations, I would suggest that you get your facts together, get them right, show empathy, not just start bombarding the other person with accusation or hurl accusation, but also try to put the concern in a much more respectable and professional way. So I thought I'll put across certain practical tips. So collect all information and projects, possible changes or concern. Most importantly, put yourself in the shoes of other person. What if you had been sitting on the other side of the table? Is that what you have you expect the other person to behave? If not, then be the person that you want the other person to behave. Put yourself in the shoes of other person and reflect how you might feel about what's going on. Uh, a great start in these kind of conversation is to recognize that there are diverging viewpoints. There are possible viewpoints. We are showing empathy, and ultimately we're trying to find a middle ground. Uh, if there is a problem, then this should be presented as a problem, but in a much more positive manner. Uh, in many of these meetings, what I have seen is that people are very good in identifying problems, but they are not so good in identifying or proposing a potential solution. So whenever you are going to a particular meeting or a particular discussion, you might know the problem, but you should also think of what could be a possible solution, because this gets a very engaging and a positive uh, way. People would appreciate. They may not just have a potential solution then and there, but if you, from your experience, are able to share a particular solution or a possible solution, it is worth considering his time and your time also. So again, not just problem, but come along with the solutions. Uh, uh, it is also important that in those discussions are direct and transparent. Uh, we all should be prepared for divergent ideas, but it is critical that we are transparent. We're not hiding towards a particular uh, outcome, or we are not biased towards a particular outcome. So certain level of transparency from both the person is necessary. Lastly, as I said, that if you are not having a solution, then people would get defensive, and sometimes things might go heated up. So the way we have a well explained problem, we should have two or three well explained possible solutions. Uh, some again practical tips: we should immediately follow up with actionable steps and suggestions for resolving the issue. For instance, if you are discussing budget shortfalls with the client, propose alternative ways to minimize or to optimize spending or generate revenue. If you're addressing an internal issue with the team, offer constructive feedback and outline clear steps for avoiding these issues in the near future. Now, if you could appreciate, we are just shifting the entire paradigm of these discussions from a accusatory kind of a situation to a solution oriented situation. We are trying to provide solutions, but we're also trying to transparently identify and communicate the issues on hand, right? So we are not just seen as problem identifier, but we are also looked at as problem solver. Uh, I don't think we do this at all. Active listening. We have a particular set of notion in our mind. We always speak through that notion. We don't listen to what the other person is saying. So this is one of the biggest communication pitfall, especially when there are tough situation, is the failure to listen to the other person effectively. And what I want to highlight is listening is not just, keeping mum. It is not just uh, uh, hearing what the other person is saying. Listening actually means you are involved with that particular person. You are there to help him. You would question, you would ask clarifications, right? But in many times I have seen that the active listening is not practice. It is just hearing. His hearing is when you are just your ears and sensory organs are just trying to listen to that, and it is just passed on. It is not processed because you always have your blinkers on. You have already formed your point of view. So I would try to differentiate or bring to your attention that in case of difficult situation, try active listening, where you actually seek clarifications in a respectable way. You discuss things, right? Rather than just keeping quiet and say, no, no, I don't agree to what you're saying, right? That is not expected of a chartered accountant like us. So we should use active listening techniques throughout the conversation. This means giving the other person your full attention, avoiding interruptions, and reflecting on your key points before responding. I would like to focus on the last sentence, reflecting on our key points before responding. In these type of emotionally charged scenarios, we tend to respond very quickly. Rather, we feel obligated that we should have responded quickly, else the other person will have a uh, additional thing on the argument, right? It is we feel very obligated that we have to prove our point, or to tell this point right now. But a healthy discussion, or a healthy debate, is where you give full attention. Most importantly, before speaking, analyze and reflect on whatever we have discussed, and then reframe and provide your response. One of the way could be that you rephrase what you have understood and clarify the questions. For example, I could say that what I'm hearing is that you are concerned about the current budget's timing and process. Can you tell me what are your specific concerns? Right? So we are not just trying to accuse the other person that your budget was fault earlier. Now we are trying to cover it up, but I'm actually trying to ask those getting questions so that I could get to the root cause of these challenges. I'm sure this we may not be doing in many cases, is to control the speech. In case of an emotionally charged situation, generally our uh, our pitch will be high. We will try to be hurried, where the pitch and tone, the volume will intensify. This only creates a very negative connotation on the person who is listening. This makes you emotionally charged. You might feel the rush in your body, but look at from the other side. They feel flustered, they feel angry, they sometimes even feel out of control. So if you are trying to pass on a difficult message to your junior team member, or to any other person, your client or whoever, make sure that you communicate them in a controlled speech, right? It is not that you have to always shout to make your point clear. You should again pay attention to how you are coming across. If during the conversation you believe that something could have been changed, important that you take a pause. You take a breath. If you feel that your chest is tightening as the conversation is going on, slow down, take a deep breath, right? How we can achieve this? We can achieve this through controlled breathing, keeping yourself alert to see if there are certain things which is going out of the way. Now, when you're slowing down your breathing process, you would be able to remain calm and maintain professionalism with your boss, or with your senior team members, or your client, or with anybody with whom you are having a conversation. And needless to say, uh, preparation always helps. So as far as I do, when I have, let's say, come for this webinar, or if I have to go to a particular uh, webcast somewhere else, I would always spend time in preparing, right? So preparation is key. It might be a simple thing of controlling the tone of your speech, or the pitch of your voice, or your hand movement, or any of these behavioral attributes. If you are practicing on these matters, then obviously you will be able to sail through. Most importantly, stay calm under pressure, right? Tough conversations can lead to emotionally charged, especially when discussing financial errors. or disagreements. So it is important that we remain calm, we remain composed, and most importantly, we remain professionals. It is important to remain calm and composed, even if the other person is upset, agitated, or angry. What I think when you are under pressure, the way you behave tells more about you. It is not that you have to prove your point right. It is also about how you are making that point right. If you're trying to snub the other person who is talking, then it is not a good picture, or it's not a good feeling somebody would have about you. So please stay calm and maintain professionalism in each and every conduct of these meetings. Uh, in these kind of a situation, always look for a productive outcome, navigate the discussion towards the positive outcome. Don't just hurl abuses and challenges against each other, but the idea, if you are the leader of that conversation, should be to reach towards a positive outcome. Now, but what happens, right? What should we do if the emotions continue to run high? I think the best way is to step back and regroup. If you believe that the discussion is not going in the way you would like to have, or you are being too overcharged on a particular scenario, there is no harm in regrouping. You should step back and regroup. When you're speaking to a client or speaking to a seniors, your tone should be neutral, should avoid escalating the scenario with defensive or reactive language. If the conversation get too heated, suggest taking a break and reconvening after a particular point in time. For example, you can say, let's take some time to reflect and take a moment in this fact pattern, and let's revisit again in this afternoon. So, staying calm not only demonstrates professionalism, but also helps de-escalate the problem, right? So, most importantly, stay calm, maintain the pitch and tone of your voice, and never ever be unprofessional with your team members, with your boss, or with the clients on the other side. What if we had made some mistakes? We are ultimately human. We are prone and susceptible to human error or human incorrect judgment. Be upfront, right? Be upfront and accept that possibly the situation could have been managed better. Possibly the communication could have come a week before. Possibly the situation could have been escalated maybe a month before. If you believe that there is an error, or things could have been done in a better way, there is no harm in accepting that mistake, right? It only shows how brave, how mature and professional you are. But mind you, from a client relationship perspective, this goes in a very, very long way to build a very strong and a robust client relationships. Needless to say, accepting errors also helps in building trust and maintaining credibility, right? Uh, just acknowledge and take a responsibility of what is appropriate. You might say that, we missed a key detail in this report, and I take full responsibility for that. And, let's say how we can correct this and move forward. Uh, but what the client would also expect, how you are able to have a conversation, but how we're able to use the learnings of those conversations. If you're going to repeat the same mistake again, possibly there could be question about your competence or the way you deal things. So what I would say is practice what you do and do what you practice. So if you would follow this mantra, possibly you would have a much more seamless and a much more easy client relationship to manage. Uh, Lastly, what I have also seen in my experience, if you are proactive, if the other person has not yet identified the mistake, but if you are proactive in your attitude, this again strengthens trust relationships by a very, very long way. It strengthens the commitment that you have for a particular individual or a particular work. But if you are able to proactively identify a particular scenario or a particular error that have identified in the past, that will not only diffuse the particular scenario, but it will also strengthen the relationship. Lastly, when you try to end a particular uh, s- difficult conversation, it is important that we end with clarity and actionable steps. It is very easy to have a discussion. It is more easy to have a conclusion. But what is also important is that we look at look at client deliverables. We proactively engage in such things, and we end with a proper clarity. There should be actionable steps written down, and that should be a way forward. What it does is that it avoids confusion. It avoids the fact that we are not responsible on for a particular thing. If we are uh, uh, having a exceptional kind of scenario, it is important that we write down what are the takeaways so that both the parties can work on them, right? Again, when you set targets, it is very important that you set clear timelines, clear responsibilities, and do a proper follow up. Yeah. But it what happens that things doesn't go the way they should have gone, right? You should know when to walk away. There is no problem in walking away. If you are feeling uncomfortable with a particular discussion, you don't believe the discussion has been taken away in a particular spirit, then it is important for you to consider that whether you should continue with that relationship. It is important that you continue with that particular individual. So that's a consideration, more of a commercial discussion that you might have. Now, what happens if you still are unable to reach a consensus with your team member? So my suggestion would be again to have a clear cut expectation that we have agreed to disagree. We are unable to reach a mutual consensus, and then generally in many of the firms there are proper channels where we need to escalate. For example, the HR or maybe the service line leader, and they along with you can take a call and re-evaluate. Now, if it is a client related matter, it is a service delivery related matter. We appreciate that walking away from a client is not an easy decision, right? Because if you would walk away, then you are fracturing a relationship which would be beyond repair. There will always be a dent between yours and the other person relationship. So I completely appreciate that walking away may not always be a easy choice. Now, but if you decide to walk away, do ensure that the legal aspects are taken care of. If there is a termination of relationships, what will happen to the contract that we have signed? What will happen to the engagement letter that we have signed? Do we need to give a notice period? Do we need to intimate each other officially? That somewhere the lawyers or the legal experts would be able to help you. Uh, if you are still planning to walk away, make sure that we wind up our existing work. It can't be that we will leave our work. It is highly unprofessional. At least to the extent we have been able to complete our work, complete the job, and then walk away. Right? Uh, Wrapping up a customer in the middle of a job will likely cause more problems for you or your team down the track and maybe detrimental to your reputation. Mind you, these are very, very difficult and sensitive matters. And if you plan to walk away or resign from a particular client, from a public expectation perspective, this creates more questions, and this might also lead to a damage of a reputation. So again, a very difficult scenario, but I'm sure this would be a scenario which every one of us would like to avoid. But still, if the situation arises in the rarest of the rare moment, my suggestion would be to assess the legalities and wrapping up of the work that you are still undergoing. If it is a discussion that we are having with a team member which which didn't go well, then obviously you would escalate this to the other mechanism in the firm, and let the firm, including you, would take a much more holistic view on this issue. What if you're on the reverse? What if you're not the person who is driving the conversation, but the person who is sitting and listening to that conversation? Okay. Again, be professional, right? Be open and receptive, both in your communication and body language. Listen to carefully what the other person has to say. Maintain your composure the best you can. Ask questions for clarifications to fully understand the issue. Why is it being discussed, and how next steps are being agreed? So if you are at the receiving end, where somebody is commenting on your performance, or somebody is commenting on the work that you have done, don't get into the fighting mode. Listen to what the other person is saying. Possibly the other person in front of you is more experienced, and in his or her experience, the service delivery that you have done is not up to the mark. So listening, as I said, active listening is very, very much important. Again, when you're having those conversation, be mindful of your tone and participate respectfully in a two-way and a constructive dialogue. The idea is to reach a common ground so that we both are able to find a positive solution. But again, as I said earlier, maintaining the tone, the body language is very critical. Again, a few practical tips which I thought I would share from my own experience. We should not try to be reacting emotionally. Even though if you feel that the situation is unfair, if you, for example, believe that your performance had been very good, you should have given a higher amount of compensation. So again, if the situation or the possible outcome may not go in your desired way, but it is very important that you remain professional and calm and the entire situation. Don't just react emotionally. Okay. Negative emotions, as we discussed, can cause breakdown of communication. So we might lead to a scenario with when either of the parties are not willing to communicate, they are able to stuck to their particular point of view. To make them seeing a different point of view, both the parties, is becomes very challenging. So there might be emotional issues, there might be emotional breakdowns, but one thing what I would always suggest is that when you have made a point of view, try to make it with common consensus. Okay. Again, from a feedback perspective or next level work perspective, we should be taking time to respond questions and ask space to go away and think for more about a discussion if you would need to. So again, as I said, we don't need to end the discussion today. We can have a discussion on a go forward basis. We can then say that, let me think about it, and then come back to him or her with your perspective on a timely manner. But in no way we should give an impression that we are not professional chartered accountants. Again, I think I had repeated this couple of times. Be a problem solver and not just a problem identifier. In some cases, you may be aware of an issue and have come prepared in a particular solution. Otherwise, it is emergent or a urgent scenario where there is no set precedence or a set uh, outcome. Uh, so what we should also do is that in case of difficult conversation, not just listen to what the other person is saying, but there should again be a two-way communication. You communicate your point of view to the other person. So try to find out possible solution. Try to find out certain other team members who can influence or close these particular matters between two individuals. But ultimately, you should be trying to reach towards a common ground. Uh, what I would also suggest practically, that if there are constructive criticism, try to see that there are healthy learning opportunities. It is not that somebody is trying to find fault, but they are trying to give you an opportunity to learn, right? Ask questions and clarify your misunderstanding. Ensure that you get your ideas and opinions across in a respectful and a professional manner. Uh, Generally, in case of a difficult conversation, it ends with jotting down the agreed steps and documented. Okay. So most importantly, in those conversations, you should think that after we have ended the conversation, how will the life change? What will be that differentiating factor which would either deter or compel the fact that that the situation continues to be inappropriate. If you believe that these situations would change, make sure that you document and agree on the course of action. I thought I'll just share this quote. In my experience, I have always seen that the hardest conversation yield the most strongest connections. Right? When you discuss with the client, engage in a very constructive dialogue with the client, and both then comes as a winner. We may not reach to the same answer which we would have thought, but ultimately, if you are able to engage and meet at a common ground, that will obviously yield a very strong connection between two parties. It it gives you a chance to strengthen relationships, deepen trust, whether it is interacting with the clients, operations, or other manager. You should equip yourself for confidence in traversing through this conversation through preparation of empathy and fact, a lens towards solution, courtesy of active listening coupled with professionalism. Now, this I know these are very big jargons or very fancy English, but ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that be true, be honest to yourself, try to engage towards a positive outcome rather than just saying ticking in the box. Where money or commercial is the bone of contention, we should appreciate that this is a very sensitive thing. uh, and it people might react to finance in a particular way. So especially where commercials and money is involved, be additionally cautious and provide adequate focus when dealing with these issues. Mind you, only when you have managed these difficult conversations, you will be able to work in a complex situation, resolve conflicts, and long-term mature relationships. So, if you are able to handle and navigate this kind of complex scenario or a difficult scenario, then obviously you are adding something to your persona, to your behavior skills, and then it ultimately builds you as a much more stronger professional. So my suggestion to you would be is not to run away or get scared from the toughest conversation. My experience had always been that toughest conversations have yielded the most strongest relationship that have endured over a very long period of time. Okay. So now we are moving towards the end of the presentation. We are trying to say that which are all the strategies that we should avoid for difficult client scenarios, right? What we should do to avoid this kind of a scenario. My takeaway would be to first identify what are the type of clients that you want to engage with. If you are define who is your ideal client, right? Who is the good fit for you as a service provider in the entire scheme of things. What I have seen in practice is that chartered accountants create their own client profile. They try to state their particular experience or capabilities in a particular set of client. Identify those skill sets and then identify what is good fit for you. Now, whether that's a fit from an e-commerce or a retail perspective, agriculture, a building and construction, or family-owned businesses, what is it that you want to engage with? Where had been your experience in these kind of sectors or clients? So try to aggregate and bring down to a common platform. Build your profile and host it in the appropriate places. Now, the moment you have your profile ready, this would reinforce the opportunities that you want to play with. You will have a very focused customer profile with options in niche markets, industries, and professionals. This would only help you to unlock efficiency and referrals, because the entire business will be much more focused rather than scattered. It will be now much more focused. Conduct due diligence. Before you accept a new client, you should engage and conduct due diligence. You should have your background checks to say how if there are any ethical issues or ethical concerns on a particular client. If it is not, then possibly it would be a positive factor to consider when you are finalizing a particular client. Now, due diligence could be reviewing the financial statements, credit ratings, which are generally available online. What is the values and objective of the firm? The board meetings that they had, the annual report that they had published. What is it that is talking about the company? Are the directors or those charged with governance are involved in certain sketchy or questionable uh, mm, conduct? Whether there are certain regulatory inspection that is going on. So basis this, you have to conduct a due diligence before you finalize the set of clients that you want to work with. Uh, After that, I think we should have very clear set of expectations. We should be knowing what are the expectations from our client. Uh, Most importantly, we should know what the client expects. We should quantify what the client expects, and we should have a regular feedback session for them to understand where we are on all those topics. So it might appear very simple or very non-complex, but generally I have seen people faltering on feedback. We might do our work, we might expect what the client expect us to do, but if there are any hiccups, we are generally uh, uh, the thing generally hesitant in ensuring that um, we are communicating in the correct way. One possible thing that we might use is automation. So technology is cutting across service lines, cutting across service modeled delivery. So it is important that we explore the possibility of using automation. Automation or technology, as we know, creates a crucial role in the client service relationships. uh, uh, why is it important? Because it improves communication, right? Automation streamlines chartered accountants to communicate with the clients, ensuring that the messages are sent and received promptly. There is no time lag. The moment I press a send button, more likely than not, the message will be delivered immediately to the recipient. This again saves time. We don't have have to wait for a letter or for anything to revert back. It avoids manual intervention, uh, and then it also shows our attitude towards being agile, of new developments. So overall, it creates this culture of cost saving. It enhances accuracy for sure. If you are doing a repetitive task, for example, you have to send out a prepared by client list or a pending list at the end of every week, you can use technology or automation to make this activity very simple. Similarly, data entry, accounting automation reduces the risk of errors, which then avoids misunderstanding and fosters a more positive client relationship rather than damaging them. Uh, One of the other aspect which I've seen other people doing is to focus on on focused services. So the way we have identified certain set of clients that with whom we want to engage with, we might also like to have specialized or focused services. So if you have a focused delivery model or a focused client service attitude, the many people would be very appreciative of this, because this becomes a much more client centric practice rather than a boilerplate or very generic kind of delivery. They also see the value they will add. They will be much more closer in appreciating the value that you will do. Now, how we can do a client focused, maybe an accounting or an auditing service. It is very important that we plan the sessions every year. It can't be that we are doing at the when the client or the job is on our head. We should proactively see what are those services that we want to offer, that we are experienced with, and we should have a much more focused attitude. Should see the possibility of site visits. We might visit a particular place or a particular client and on a regular basis. We should also have a room for growth. Uh, And needless to say, we should have a regular business meeting. We arrange monthly and quarterly touch points with the clients to discuss their business and financial performance. Again, net, if I have to sum up on this slide, what I'm trying to tell you is to have a proactive mindset. You have a much more focused and a focused and specialized mindset, so that we provide client-centric options and client-centric solutions. Again, better planning and regular feedback and communication continues to be critical. Uh, we should also work on our soft skills, right? We might see that the soft skills that we require may not be appropriate. We should use emotional intelligence as a core soft skill for chartered accountants. When I should say emotional intelligence, we should be emotional towards a particular issue. We should use empathy, and we should be considerate to the other person's point of view also. You apply your intelligence not just on technical ground, but you also employ them on an emotional and a relationship building uh, 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 attitude. Um, Another skills that probably we can use or we can work on is to is as I said, is to communicate clearly, effectively, and efficiently. You communicate on time. You communicate the correct material, and you communicate to the correct person. So again, this requires a level of maturity. This also requires working very closely on your soft skills. Soft skill is not just about speaking, but it also making sure that you are communicating effectively. Communication, it can't be stressed enough because it is important, and it is a very key ingredient when you master your soft skills. Also, it is important that we prioritize uh, human empathy, right? We prioritize humanity. It is not that where we are dealing with robots. We are dealing with emotionally charged people. So it is very important that we prioritize humanity and empathy when we're dealing with a difficult situation. Uh, let's say we're talking about layoffs, they are very sensitive and they might trigger a very different response from different person. So we should be empathetic. We should say that we're ultimately talking to a human being, right? And very politely pass on difficult message. In our conversation we should be appreciative of the real impact or adverse impact that might have on a particular individual or a particular client. So it is important that we actively listen to the concerns and emotion, and be compassionate in our response. uh, in some cases we might have to go out of the box. We might have to do additional uh, look at additional aspects, look at additional things which we would generally not be doing. So it is very important that we go and walk an extra mile to look for solutions with empathy and see what we can help them in this particular difficult situation that the other person is encountering. So prioritize humanity, empathy, look for possible solution, and walk that extra steps to see whether there are additional uh, alternates that might be available. uh, Frequency of communication, I couldn't emphasize enough. uh, it is uh, 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 it is not only important that what you are communicating, but what is also important, how frequently we are communicating. If you are communicating on a frequent basis, more likely than not, the client or the other person will take things in a much more positive way. As I said, communication, it's not just quantity, it is also about quality. So make sure that you take steps to make every conversation count. The way you would like yourself to be heard in a particular discussion, you should be that person when you are conversing with your juniors or maybe conversing with other team members. So, well, that's what I had from my side. If there are anything else, I would be happy to share. I hand it back to the team. So, if there are any questions or something that would have come, uh, please let me know. Well, I don't think we have any more questions. So I just want to thank everyone. Thank you, ICI. Thank you, everybody, for giving an opportunity to discuss on this important topic. I hope you had good takeaways, practical takeaways, which you can implement in your professional conversations. And I would now close the call. Thank you and happy holidays.
Sir,
Yeah,
the questions will be shared in the chat box soon. If there
yeah,
is any question, sir.
sure,
Yes,
sure.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So can I close the call now?
So please wait for some time,
Sure,
Chairman.
sure.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, sir. Again.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Oh, thanks. So I think as of now we don't. So in the chat we don't have any questions as of now. So from the backend, if you can confirm, is there any question you can show us on the dashboard, or is it the question can be posted only on the chat?
Yes, sir. I'm checking this, sir. Sir, I'm sharing the question, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yes, sir.
So where is these questions are?
Sir, I'm sharing on the chat box, sir.
Yeah, please. So is there any question, or can we conclude?
So there are one or two questions, sir. I'm just typing in the chat box, sir.
Yeah, please. I can't see as of now. So I think let me just conclude the session. And if there are any questions, okay, how do we maintain professionalism when dealing with a client who disagree? Sir, can we address this question in short? That how do we maintain professionalism when dealing with a client who disagree?
I think if you are if the client is disagreeing with you, I think it is first importantly we should understand what is the reason for disagreement, right? What is the root cause? Many times what I have seen is that we being emotional, the problem that we try to address is very much different from the actual problem. So first, I would suggest that you identify what is the root cause. It might be, that the things are getting delayed. You are expecting to have a discussion or a heated discussion about things are getting delayed, or you are going to have a discussion with the client about a particular accounting or a tax position which he or she has a different view. So there could be various reasons for disagreement, but ultimately the identification of the root cause is important, because then only you would be able to provide a solution. If you're able if you're able to pinpoint what that disagreement is, then I think the way, as I explained, to have two people in the table with each other, both should have the attitude of reaching uh, a positive outcome, not to just prove their own point. Generally, it happens that we try to prove our point rather than try to find a solution. So I think that that level of maturity, you might like to involve senior member of your team, or senior partners, or senior person from the management, which have a very unbiased approach of solution providing, rather than saying who is right or wrong. So I think if you do all this, we should be able to at least reach a middle ground.
Yes, correct. So I think that there is no as such question. So by
Sir,
now, yes.
sir, 1 or 2 questions are there in the chat box, sir.
What strategies do we use to de-escalate conflict during sensitive financial discussion?
So I would say I'm not a very good fan of yoga, but ultimately I have always found deep breathing to be a very good exercise to calm things down, right? So if you're having a very difficult conversation, we should always take a step back, uh, have a break in between, right? A coffee break or a tea break, and then regroup. Because if you are continuing with a heated argument or an emotionally charged situation, more likely than not, you will not reach the desired outcome, and obviously you will not feel good when that conversation ends. So my submission to you would be that when you are having a conflict, try to de-escalate by taking a break, and obviously practice deep breathing.
So just if you can quickly summarize in one of the questions that what you can say that what we need to do for building the trust. So I think sorry to interrupt, but I would like to add here. So because I am working with one of the big four, so I think the better thing is that till the time you are not knowing the business and operation of the client, I think because for the client as a chartered accountant, you are the best person to know their business, because till then till that time you cannot build up steps. Now it's up to you, sir.
No, I completely agree what you just said. But what I also know from experience is that trust takes time. You have to invest time. It can't happen overnight. It's not like a pill that you swallow and ultimately the trust is built. You have to invest time. Client values your approach. If you are able to add value, if you're able to do the same things but in a different way, if you're able to add a new dimension, if you're able to add, increasingly we are saying technology as an enabler to add value, right? So you have to find your ways to build your value. If you're able
Correct.
to build that value, I'm sure it is only a matter of time when they start trusting you. As I said, we are in the trust business. We build trust, right? And trust takes time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Very well said, sir. So I think now there is no question. So now we can conclude.
Sure.
So I was on and off in mid of the session due to some of the task which was previously predefined. But yes, sir, it has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful session on handling the difficult conversation by the CAs, which is very important. And this the committee who has organized, I think I can say that in the ICI that this committee has performed a lot of things. So great applause to you, sir, and thank you so much to you, sir, for giving us your valuable time.
Thank you. My pleasure. and happy holidays. As I said, I hope we all take some time off with our families. Thank you once again.